Hello and welcome to the Hawks Nest stream show. My name is Brandon Kane, and I do appreciate you for tuning on in today as we continue to work our way through this off season and a variety of different topics we're going to kind of try to bounce to keep this thing spiced up a little bit, get you guys a little bit of variety. We've been going really hard at these draft picks, looking at the selections. We still have a couple more that I want to go through and look here in this off season with Bryce Cable due later on this week, and we'll eventually get over to Mitch Richmond, the Richmond kid, Mason. Undrafted rookie free agents that have kind of caught my eye as well. We'll be doing that next week. But today is a day for a little bit of a different style of video. There's times on this channel I like to try to take a little bit of a pulse of the NFL in general and what's going on in the NFL as far as trends and what's happening, how we can take advantage of it, if we're taking advantage of it, if we're going against what might be a rule of thumb, let's say, or a way that is a successful approach versus one that's not a successful approach. As you can see, things that just don't work in the NFL and things that do work. You want to be a little bit of one that zigs when everyone's zagging, of course, because that's how great teams are made, not just going with the flow. But there's also those things that you can do that isn't exactly the right way of the approach of things. And what we're going to talk about today is going to be the running back position. Here in Seattle, we have, I think, as a fan base, a very unique affinity for running backs. We've had a variety of them come through here down our hallways and variety of different levels of how they've been good. And we've known here that there's so many different running backs that have so many varied styles that they can bring with their impact. We get to go back and got Chris Warner as a top five pick. Can you imagine that, taking that at the running back position? Yes, we did. And actually, we did just after we took Eric Dickerson in that very same draft, or not we, but the Rams took Dickerson. And from there, you've had Sean Alexander in the first round, who went on to have a very tremendous career, almost 10,000 yards rushing. Ricky running Wadas in here, Chris Warren. In the modern era here, even our Coach Carroll, we had a litany of really good running backs, from Marshawn Lynch coming in and what he was able to do in setting that stage and that pulse for the team in a lot of ways as being the engine of the team. Carroll looking to replicate this right now with the Raiders and grabbing Ashton Genty and kind of starting a little bit from the same place there, and how he's looking to kind of create that same sort of heartbeat. So understanding that we do love running backs here, and we do understand that they can bring impact and that they can help an offense out a lot, we come back around to a decision that was made a couple of years ago to take Kenneth Walker in the second round, and then take Zach Charbonnet the very next year after that in the second round as well. To give you guys an understanding of how outside of the norm this is, looking into this over the last about 20 years, I was only able to find one team that had taken a running back in, let's say, the first or the second round, and then come back the very next year and taken a running back in the first or second round. That's going to be the Cincinnati Bengals, who in 2013 took, I believe it was, 2013 they took Giovanni Bernard, and then 2014 Jeremy Hill, both in the second round, both back to back. Now, this was not a move for them that was necessarily a successful one either. The one here with Kenneth Walker, we're going to talk about, maybe we can, I love Kenneth Walker, don't get me wrong, great player and a dynamic talent, but there's a lot that goes into this, because a lot of why you see people pushing back against taking running backs early on in the draft have to do with, of course, the analytics and how they've risen up. But not just the analytics, also that there's other factors that come into a running back success that supersede what might be their hyper-dynamic ability to go get yards, to break tackles, to just be a difference maker for the position, and that those superseding factors need to be taken into account more strongly than simply just getting caught up in the talent of the player and saying, he'll overcome it all. He'll overcome it all. You don't want him to overcome it all. And if you really want to maximize a dynamic talent, the analytic folks told us a couple of years ago, you've got to get some things in place first and foremost. What are those things? First, it does help if you can get a functional, hell, even a very dominant offensive line. You got to get a workable, proven offensive scheme. Now, I'm not talking about dominant. I'm not talking about top five, so let's not overstate this. Workable, proven, something in place that you know can work and be functional all the way around. And here in Seattle, of course, we've gone through our share of offensive coordinators in recent years over and over, and that's pretty far from what would look at as a proven scheme. You want a functional quarterback that can keep the boxes light. If he doesn't have the arm to beat a team over the top or challenge them to make all the NFL throws, if they can come down and shrink down your box, stack that box up, that no matter how good of a running back you are, is going to limit a little bit of what you can do. And then on the other side of it, I think is the final factor, which I'd include into this, is a suffocating defense. Why? Because if you're a pass-happy team, that sometimes can lead to sometimes inconsistency versus running the ball. And if you're going to have a defense that's going to give up a lot of points, you're oftentimes going to have to pass to maintain what the other offense on the other side, what they're doing. And now you're suddenly going away from your running game without it actually being stopped. And we've seen that here in Seattle at times, in that, you get behind, you got to score. You can't just live in the run game a lot of times at that point. So I would say as well, get the suffocating defense that allows you to at least stay in the games so that you can stay with the run. So we're going to talk about those 4 points here in regards to our Hawks over the last couple of years with this. But to show you guys that I don't have any bias on this and that I was actually really open to this process working out here for the Hawks, taking the running backs in the second round in back-to-back years. And again, this isn't as much to try to hammer them for taking the selections. These guys are really great backs. They're going to help this team out. It's just about how you value your draft picks, where you select guys, and where are maybe the right or wrong places to grab guys, especially taking into account those factors that I just mentioned that are outside of the running back's control. So let's go back to a little 3-minute clip video that I want to show you guys. And this was a video that I put together on the front of discussing the selection of Kenneth Walker, because there was a lot of wringing of hands a little bit in the fan base at that time because of the fact that they looked at it like, man, you can't take a running back this early. The offensive line's not good enough, again, for some of those factors I just mentioned. And so this was a little bit of a good case study for your Seattle Seahawks over the last couple of years. But I want to show you guys where I was at, because I think it's going to lend well into kind of making the point that I'm going to kind of seek to make here on the show today and what I'm trying to go into. So let's go back to the front end of this video I made. This was 2 years ago, right as we just selected Kenneth Walker, directly after that draft. A 3-minute video, and I will be right back.
You go through the top 10 highest paid running backs in football, and they've all missed significant time or haven't lived up to the billing.
Running backs don't matter, right?
Running backs in the NFL don't really matter.
Never invest resources in your running back.
And these guys are irrefutably very, very good at playing running back, but they get hurt.
Run scheme, box count, and down and distance affects how a running play happens so much more than how good the running back is.
Because there's been no running back that I can even think of that can carry a team to the playoffs, never mind through the playoffs, at the position the way the game is being played.
Individual running backs are extremely replaceable and should not be paid nor drafted highly.
Okay, I'm hearing them loud and clear. We can't put a lot of money into the running back position. We can't put high draft picks into the position. We got to get by with less. All right. Okay. Easy. Simple. No problem. Here we go. Whoa. Oh. Stings a little. All right. Okay. That was too high. Can't go that. We gotta go lower. It's gotta go lower. No problem. No problem. Big money. Big money, no whammies. Big money, no whammies. Here we go. Oh, good. It's good. Third time's the charm. That's what they say, right? Third time's the charm. Oh, okay. Here we go. Here we go. Come on. Come on, not this time. All right. All right, easy. Easy. Tyler Algier. Tyler Algier? No. No. Come on now, this is ridiculous. Just give me the running back. I don't care. Stupidest thing I've ever heard of in my life. I don't even know who came up with it. Probably nerds. Okay. Kenneth Walker III. maybe the best running back in this last draft. To hell with your rules.
So I was in on the potential that you could be getting a first-round talent sliding in to the second round, maybe the best running back of that class. And that's where you want to be in drafts, is you want to grab guys, if you can, a round later than they should have gone. That is almost the definition, by and large, of getting value in the draft, wherever you're getting it. But you'll notice that I casually, as I was putting that segment together 2 years ago, and this again wasn't recently put together, just this was from a video a while back, I grabbed Tyler Algiers out of that rack of things, you'll notice. And that was random. And why'd I grab him? Because he was a fifth-round pick, essentially a fifth-round pick I determined from the Falcons that was going to be one of those just kind of grinder backs that, get you some yards, but he's not going to be tremendously dynamic. He's not going to get you a lot as far as any sort of difference-making component to what he's going to bring. So how has this proven out over the last 2 years? Let's first look at this on more of the micro, then we'll get to the macro here and looking more at NFL and what's going on. But just for the sake of that random guy I grabbed in Algiers, a random later round running back that I grabbed, how has he worked versus Walker worked? Walker's been in an environment that's won a little bit more games, maybe not a lot more games, but a little bit more games. He's been the feature back. Algiers was quasi a feature back for maybe one of the years, but then the last couple of years has kind of been sitting behind Bijan Robinson on the depth chart. Not a team that's won a lot of games, right? So let's take a look at something here real quick. If I was to post these three career totals for a running back, these three different running backs, could you tell which one is Walker without looking it up? Could you figure out which one of these is that? Because one of these is Tyler Algiers. One of these is Bijan Robinson. One of these is Kenneth Walker. And so we have this guy taken much later than Walker. Yet, in fact, he has, at the very least, for the most part, outside of maybe touchdowns, matched him. And as a spoiler alert for you guys, Bijan Robinson would be the middle guy. So the top is going to be Tyler Algiers. The bottom is going to be Kenneth Walker. So you can see that these guys drafted in two different places in the draft. Walker's got about 200-ish, maybe more yards. He's got more carries as well, though, to help him get there. And the yard per carry average, Walker's sitting at 4.2. Tyler Algiers is sitting at 4.4 yards per carry his career. So a better yard per carry average from Tyler Algiers. Now, am I trying to say Tyler Algiers is better? No, I'm trying to make the case here about the supporting factors and parts that the nerds are making such a strong case for. I'm trying to say that I think that the nerds probably had a bit of a point that they made a couple of years ago in banging this drum so hard. And that this is not proven out, that the difference-making talent is going to supersede everything, that he is going to overcome these other things. These other things are more important. Otherwise, Tyler Algiers would be not this close. Again, considering the fact Algiers has not been some featured back for the Falcons in an offense that's not oftentimes playing from behind, like I was just talking about a few minutes ago, having to then throw the ball a lot, which they have been, right? He's not exactly been put in a great position there to get this productivity. He's had a good offensive line. When given that, Arthur Smith, a committed offensive scheme, so he's had some of the parts that maybe Walker's been missing there. But certainly we don't see a wide difference. And so there might be a couple of people in my chat that go, well, but Walker, eye test, he's got it just way better. He just knows that, right? Well, here's Kenneth Walker's PFF scores through 3 years. Not to use this the end all be all, just we're looking at different markers here. 76.9, 83.5, 88.5. Really great scores, getting better every year, getting better at finding those holes, not doing as much dancing at times when he shouldn't. Still a little bit of an issue. Good scores. Okay, so Algiers being carried by his offensive line, being carried by his offensive scheme, certainly he's not going to, 86.7, 82.9, 86.4. Now, Algiers, good back. Solid when he does. Hard to bring down. But a guy taken in the 5th round with 151st selection in that draft versus Kenneth Walker taken relatively high in the 2nd round. So two different guys in that draft. One guy I grabbed randomly, same kind of stats, same kind of ranking from a PFF standpoint of things. And we come back around to, okay, is it the talent, or are these the other factors I mentioned? Functional offensive line, workable proven scheme, a quarterback that can keep the box light, a suffocating defense on the other side of it. Bring these four components together to add to the super hyper talented running back. Then that's how you're going to get the most out of those guys. Show you a couple of stats that also I think do back this up. I went back 3 years here and took a look at the top running backs and what they rush for over the course of a season. So your top 10 every year for the last 3 years. And then I looked at where PFF had their run blocking grades ranked as far as up against the other 32 NFL teams. And you do find outliers in looking at this 3 years of data. You will find Josh Jacobs with the Raiders in 2022, who had the most rush yardage in the league, but who had the 17th best run blocking grade in the sport. This is carried over with him to the Packers. This is one of those difference maker guys that may be one of the rare running backs out there that can kind of overcome some of this, but they are truly the outliers. That year, Henry was number 2. He was second. He's also been, as you'll see in a second here, a little bit of an outlier at times where he can have middle of the road run blocking and still go get that stuff done on the other side of it. You've got Nick Chubb at the 8th best run blocking, 3rd Barkley, 14th to the 4th highest. And Barkley's a guy that we're going to talk about here in a second for this very kind of reason, and how you've seen him also play out as an example of this. Sanders with the Eagles at this time had the 5th highest run blocking grade. Kelsey and all the group there had also the 5th highest rushing yardage. 3rd for Dalvin Cook. Justin Fields with the Bears. That year, the Bears had the 6th highest run blocking grade in all of football, and Justin Fields at the quarterback position had the 7th most amount of rushing yardage in the sport. And you can go through and see at the bottom, you got Etienne and Mozart as a little bit of outliers. I think what you do notice is we're going to go through a couple of these is that when we do see maybe one of the running backs that's 18, 23-ish, they tend to be at the back end of that top 10. Here in 23, you can see the same thing. Christian McCaffrey with the Niners has the best run blocking unit in all of the sport. And oh, look at that. He has the most rushing yardage in all of the sport. I mentioned Henry, 17th. That year, middle of the road, Tennessee Titan team. This was just before he went to the Baltimore Ravens, of course, but still the 2nd most amount of rush yardage. Kyron Williams there with the Rams had the 5th best run blocking unit, 3rd most rushing yardage. Cook 16-4, Swift 3-5. Connor, outlier, 26th, gets it down to 6. Najee Harris 13th into 7th. So a couple of outliers on this one, but for the most part, Montgomery in there had the 2nd highest run blocking unit in the sport. He had the 9th most amount of yardage. And I think that even going into 24, this continues to be more of the trend of what we see, where Saquon Barkley had the 6th highest run blocking grade. And oh, look at that. Now he's up at the top with the most rush yardage. Bit of the example we talk about here of you want to put these other things together, then go out there and get your back. I feel like this with the running back and the quarterback a little bit. First, get these fundamentals correct, and then you've earned the right to go get this really dynamic back that you can then get the most out of, rather than limiting their production because you're not giving them some of these things, or in many cases with Walker over the past couple of years, almost none of them as it stands. Bijan Robinson had the best run blocking unit in all of football last year, had the 3rd most rushing yardage. We've got Jonathan Taylor, 7th highest graded run blocking unit, 4th. 3rd for Gibbs, 5th. You can basically see the trend here, though, as I go through the 3 years. Are you going to find a guy here and a guy there like Etienne with a 31st and 9? Sure. You're going to find a couple of outliers. But I think, by and large, the rule of thumb holds true here, which is that a running back can be as dynamic as hell. But in the modern era, if he's missing these other things, you're not going to get that out of him. You're not going to get the returns out of him that you really want for that. And the worm on this turning, of course, is the Saquon Barkley situation. Because Saquon Barkley was not a bad back with the New York Giants. It wasn't that he couldn't be effective, and Walker's not been a bad back here. It's not that he can't be effective at times. It's that you're not getting the most out of him. Goes to the Giants. Let's go through my list. Did he have a good offensive line? No, he did not. Did he have a workable, proven scheme? No, Barkley did not. Did he have a functional quarterback that could keep boxes light? You better believe Daniel Jones was not keeping any box light anytime at all. How about a suffocating defense? No. So Barkley missing all 4 items. Still effective player, 1,300 yards. Still busts off some big plays. goes to the Eagles now, gets the benefit now of going there and getting the 6th best run blocking unit, as opposed to even 2 years ago looking to where he had the 14th best to get the 4th highest rushing yardage amount. And now he leads the league in rushing. Now he leads the Eagles to a Super Bowl title. I mean, he was the one leading them to that Super Bowl title. So this is where I understand where in certain ways, from a John Schneider perspective in the front office here, you were both a bit ahead of the curve and still behind the curve, if that can be possibility. You were ahead of the curve in recognizing the trend moving back to the running game in football, and that this is where this thing's maybe kind of shifting to with the cover 2 shell defenses. And I'm sure John was talked a lot about that with consultants and people in the room. There's a lot of smart people out there in that building. I'm sure that they advised him on this. But then you were behind the curve, and much like I just talked about with Barkley, let's go down the line with Kenneth Walker when he came in here. Those 4 items. Offensive line? No. Workable, proven scheme? Well, I think we're to, if I'm not mistaken, we're to his 3rd offensive coordinator in 4 years. So we'll go with a big fat no on that one. A functional quarterback that can keep the boxes light? Yeah, we've had that. We have had that with Geno Smith. I think him with DK on the outside, Tyler here, that's been one thing you've been able to give Walker for the most part, especially with teams' predilection to leaning on the cover 2 shell against us specifically and kind of shutting down some of our deep passing attack. So 1 of 3 so far. How about a suffocating defense? Not quite. So you've given Walker one of those major 4 factors there to find success for a running back. And I think now we can kind of backtrack this one to understand why we're not able to get as much out of him. Charbonnet, this has been much of the same way. This is the good part about taking 2 running backs in second round back-to-back years also, and I'd include him on this, in that he's also been a guy that's had some moments and hasn't been a bad running back for you, but you have struggled to maximize that second round pick in the way that you'd like to. You look at other second round running backs in this league that have had really, really good success, and you're just not able to touch it with these guys because he's being limited in the same things that are limiting Kenneth Walker. That these guys are separate, disparate talents. They both have great things they bring to the table. They're not similar really very much at all, but yet they're both impinged by the fact that you just can't quite give them these things to give them that success. And that's how the running back room works. That's how a great running back works in this modern era. It may not have been this way in 1985 in Walter Payton's day. It may not have been this way in 1995. And maybe that's why those guys, running back wise, could be taken like we did in 83 with 2 running backs taken in the top 5 with Dickerson and Warner, and everybody at the time going, those are really smart picks, Bill. You got to go with those running backs there. That's what you do at that position at that time. Games changed, games evolved. Now there are other things that come into play that you've got to be more mindful of, and you can't just ignore, and you can't say, oh, we're going to get around to that later. We'll deal with that. Let's just get the talent first, and then then you're not going to get the most out of that talent. And this is supremely important with the running back position because running backs are going to be their most effective on their rookie contract. That is when you're going to get the best of their years more often than not. And so you put that also on top of this, it makes it all that much more important and puts that sense of urgency there that you've got to have that first there before you go down the line and go grab those running backs and just to try to kind of skip ahead to the front of the line a little bit. Be interesting to see with a guy like Damian Martinez or a McIntosh, because this is the other side of this too that we haven't talked about here, is that the other part the analytic folks will tell you that is on top of all those things I just spoke about at the front of that, being what factors into the success, they'll also say that the difference in talent is not as great when you go second round to even sometimes deeper in the draft. Yeah, we've got this year with Ashton Genty, who's a freak show, who's probably going to have some star capabilities in what he brings for the Raiders and may even be just that dude, that next dude at the position. But those guys are rare who come along, those near generational prospects. And by and large, the talent grouping by what they tell us is kind of very similarly placed. This is a little bit backed up by the Tyler Algier, Kenneth Walker comparison that I showed you, where you can see it there. But it's also worked a lot in how you can look at other running backs in this league who can find success even though that they're a little bit deeper in the draft. We've had guys like Thomas Rawls come in here and give you a really great rookie year. Now he had a major injury, so he couldn't sustain it, but Chris Carson also gave you some really good play before he had his injuries and couldn't sustain it. So I'm not saying I'm against taking the running backs early, but it's just another part of this to consider is that you can go get these running backs later who are also very effective players. When McIntosh came in there last year and he ran the rock for you, he did a lot with what you gave him. I'm not saying Kenny McIntosh is a better back than Kenneth Walker in any way, shape, or form, but he averaged 5.5 yards per carry last year. Kenneth Walker averaged 4.2. It's not to say he's better. It's not to say I'd go with more carries with him, but it's also an indicator that you didn't exactly drop off a complete shelf at 31 carries. I know that's not a lot, so it's a sample size bit of dip, but you didn't completely just, once you had Walker or Charbonnet leave the field, now you've got nothing at the running back position. And this is a bit supported in that. Is that Damian Martinez that you just drafted this year? We talked about him last week a little bit and looking at him. Is that a guy that'll find a role on the team? And then suddenly starts just getting more and more carries as you start to find that his hammering physical style works really well in this NFL, where tackling is getting worse and worse. And so we just come back around on this one over and over from my perspective of this is that the data over the past couple of years since we did this science experiment, John put on the lab coat, he grabbed the beaker and the Bunsen burners, he had the tongs. He was trying something unusual. I said earlier, you've not had another team in the NFL that's gone back-to-back years in the first and second round with running backs since the Bengals 2013, 2014. And the Bengals with Jeremy Hill and Giovanni Bernard also didn't have that much success on the back of taking this very kind of off the beaten path road kind of approach to things. It was a cool experiment, but I think as we go into the future, there's, with all things in what you do, there's many lessons to kind of be learned from this one. And the one that just stands out to me is you got to kind of earn the right to do it. And the running back value thing is kind of true. It is kind of true. There's still room to go get the dynamic back, but you better make sure you got, at least 3 of those 4 major things I talked about taken care of if you're going to do that. Otherwise, you're just going to kind of waste away that guy on that rookie deal. And you're going to come to find him, as we might with Kenneth Walker after this year, that he goes out and has a fine final season there and with your team, gets out into free agency, has still a good amount of tread to go out there, gets a nice deal with a really good playoff team that's got the line and got those parameters in place that I talked about. And then he goes and has his best year of his career, like we just saw with Saquon Barkley leaving the Giants to go to the Eagles. So this is one to me where there was a lot of room to be still open to debate a couple of years ago on this one. But I think that now as we land with it and then we look at it, I think that it's just been nothing but reinforced that the nerds were right on this one. The pocket protector guys had it correct. You want to make sure you're getting the parameters. You don't want to really be drafting high like that first, looking at other positions that are of higher positional value. And understanding, again, we get back to just pulling on the thread if we really want to go deep into this and understand, what is what and why is why. For the same reasons that John Schneider talks about offensive linemen being few and far between that are hyper talented, that are hyper capable of matching those freak show defensive linemen on the other side of them, opposite them. And John mentions that, it's because when you're in Pee Wee school or in high school or junior high, you lay a pancake, you don't get to do a sack dance. Nobody's looking at you. You did it, but sort of nobody notices where these other positions, you got the highlight and people are looking at you, and it's going to draw like a moth to a flame more young players to those positions because of that versus offensive line. You're a big boy in high school. Do you want to play D tackle or you want to go be a guard? I want to go be a D tackle. Now, the same thing's true with running back. These kids going back to Pee Wee, it's maybe a little different now. These kids were getting more advanced and they may be slinging the rock now all over in Pee Wee for all I know. But back in the day, in my Pee Wee days, and I'm sure still true to a certain degree, you're not throwing the ball a lot. You're running the ball a lot. So the guy that getting the ball a lot, everyone wants to get the ball. So the best athletes go to the position. They get, at that time, they've battled it out at that point, but you have a lot of great athletes, a lot of very close talent at that point because there's so many people that in history have gravitated towards that position. It might be changing now with the running backs getting a little devalued versus receivers and whatnot, but this has also been a big part of why you tend to have so much of a bevy of talent also at the position in many given drafts, even later into the drafts. A Bucky Irvin last year, that's a top 10 running back. I showed you on this list that wasn't taken, I don't think, tremendously deep. He was the 10th highest running back last year with Tampa Bay. There's a guy right there, not a later round running back or somewhat later round running back. He's got the 15th highest as far as run blocking grade from Tampa Bay, but Tampa Bay has a top 10 offensive line by far in this sport. Much better even as a pass blocking unit. Solid defense on the other side of it, and a good offensive coordinator with a solid scheme, a quarterback that can keep the boxes light with his ability to throw at least. And that allowed Irving to go out there and really have a great rookie year there, even with him sort of sharing the load with a Rashad White. So there's just so many examples to me that prove this rule of thumb. And I hope that the team can kind of walk away from this sort of recognizing that. It doesn't mean you can't go and get that talent, but it's like Mike Holmgren did with Sean Alexander back 20 years ago, because this is to show you how kind of hard-lined this rule is. Did you go get Sean Alexander and then go get Walter Jones and then go get Steve Hutchinson? Or did you already have I think the Alexander draft actually had 2 first-round picks. I want to say you took Hutchinson with one of those first-round picks. And they'd actually grabbed a McIntosh in addition to that, where they were looking to really get the line first cemented and in place before you went out there and were going to get Sean. So even 20 years ago, this was something that Holmgren kind of understood about going and getting those great running backs to first get your line or make sure you got the reinforcements of the line fully in position before you can earn the right to then go get that running back. That is the big rule that I think you got to take away from this. Hopefully the Seahawks take away from this. We'll see. And I am hoping that this year, with the improvements that we are getting at this point with Kubiak and what he brings to play, that maybe we can come to hope here that we're going to get the best year of Kenneth Walker this season, that he's going to have blocking like never before, that the use of outside zone and some of what zone kind of establishes in a running back and the methodology of the running back's approach, where a lot of other systems will allow them to freelance and have a lot of ability to kind of go where they want to find and feel the hole. This system more tells them about where they're going to go. And for some running backs, that can become restrictive. For other running backs, that can kind of set them free because it narrows down their focus. They can just kind of get into the bread box where they need to be as far as the play goes and then be at their best from that. And I think in Walker's case, he'll be more to the latter than the former. I think almost sometimes the too much freedom with him is almost allowed him to just get too bounce happy, too dance happy, and sometimes leave holes that would be there, kind of otherwise because he's looking a little bit for the home run. Doesn't mean there won't be some home runs here for him this year. I think there definitely will be, and we might very well see the best year of him. But if we do with Walker, if that's going to be the case, it's going to be because you've taken care of those very 4 parameters that I talked about, at least 3 of them, I would say, hopefully with 4, to get him to that place. I don't think you see a Walker or any back on this roster getting up over 1,500 yards unless you're probably around 3 of those 4. And again, the last 4, offensive line, workable, proven scheme, functional quarterback that can keep the box light, and then hopefully a suffocating defense or at least an above average defense to allow your running game to have some consistency to keep rolling along, doing what it's doing. So that's my take on it. You guys let me know what you think. Is the running back situation been reinforced here over the last couple of years? Has it been proven true as a rule of thumb? Or do running backs still rule? Do you wish that they still would just let them understand the value of them and that they're depressed value and that John had this right and it's maybe something outside of what I'm considering as far as the reasons as to why you've maybe not gotten as much out of these young running backs here since you took them a couple of years ago? It was an interesting little science project, that's for sure, but one that just hasn't quite fully there kicked in. I thank you guys for watching today. If you could for me, please do, you know how it is. I ask you guys always to hit that like button if you guys could for me. Maybe get subbed on up. We've got a couple of days of shows here remaining this week we're going to be looking at. So tomorrow we're going to look at the salary cap situation of your Seahawks and how it is looking very fine and pretty for the future for your Hawks to be able to make some moves, both in the interim here in the upcoming point of this future season and also into future years. Everything is looking pretty nice, comparatively speaking, to the rest of the league on that side of it. We got a Bryce Cable due look on Thursday, so we're going to do a deep dive on him. Thursday, my days turned around. We're Tuesday here, so Bryce Cable Thursday, and then Friday we're going to be looking at the nickel. Look at the nickel spot. I've been thinking more and more about the nickel situation and Nick Emawari, and about all of the people with a little bit of the discussion talking about him as the Kyle Hamilton role in this defense, which I had thought up until this point. And the guy's been playing the role pretty well, and McDonald's figuring him out really well as well. In addition to that is Devin Witherspoon. So I've been wondering, I'm going, well, are they going to kick Devin out and now he becomes more outside corner, or he's going to kind of find into a even more hybridized role? But instead, I think that this is going to be something that's a little bit different. So we'll be getting into that on Friday in regards to, I think, the utilization of these two players is going to be very interesting. And you're still going to find, I think, Witherspoon in there at times. But I think it's going to be more matchup-based, matchup-dependent when it comes to who is aligned in there and between Nick and Witherspoon. But we'll get into that on Friday on that show. I thank you guys for watching today. Again, please do hit that like button for me. I will be back tomorrow at 12 o'clock. And I do really, guys, appreciate you guys watching here with the new format of the show as we will keep this clicking on through into the off season. So until next time, please don't you ever forget, go Hawks.